My brother-in-law always mocked my loving marriage, but at one family dinner my sister finally snapped, exposing their toxic relationship for all to see. I, female, 26, have a very affectionate relationship with my husband, Mark, male, 2008. We do a lot of PDA, go out of our way to create thoughtful gifts for birthdays and anniversaries, and even earmark time for each other out of the day. This comes from our past kind of toxic relationships, which have made us learn about love languages and communicating with each other better. Basically, while every relationship has a honeymoon period, they tend to die off after a point. It's only through hard work that Mark and I can basically be in the honeymoon period, while evolving as people and partners for our entire relationship. However, my sister Rebecca, female, 30, her husband Josh, male, 35, has constantly degraded this dynamic and attacked my husband for not having a normal relationship. He's one of those guys who thinks being closed off is cool, and men are supposed to be emotionally unavailable. I've spoken to Rebecca about her husband's behavior, but she doesn't ever call him out, even if she agrees with me in private. I'm also pretty opinionated at the family dinner table, and Josh always butts heads with me about issues relating to politics and gender. Since I barely meet my brother-in-law and my sister after moving out of state, I tend to just grip my teeth and bear with it. However, I ended up moving back to my home state of Wisconsin after the pandemic, since I shifted to working freelance and left my job. Being back in my hometown has been a really stressful experience, since I became a city girl in everyone's eyes, and my brother-in-law has upped his snarky attitude ever since I came here. The things Mark and I do seem really unorthodox to a lot of people, but they're not the stereotype of the closed-minded townie and never put us down about what we do, except for Josh. I have also started noticing a lot of patterns that make me feel like Rebecca and Josh are struggling in their relationship, and I think that's making me resent my brother-in-law even more. He missed the anniversary, leaves her at home to raise their son, Lyle, to male, and, in general, makes disparaging comments about her. I have spoken to her about this several times, but she's warned me against mentioning a word to Mom and Dad or Josh. I guess Rebecca is a little scared our parents will say I told you so, because they didn't really approve of Josh when they got married. But I still find it tough to keep my mouth shut. The only thing that's stopping me is that Rebecca has threatened to cut ties with me if I go behind her back on this. So the only thing Mark and I can do right now is be there to support her and help with parenting Lyle so she has time to herself as well. Last Sunday, my parents organized a dinner to commemorate Rebecca's first sale. She's been crocheting as a hobby, and I taught her how to set up an online store, and everyone was invited. It was going really well until the conversation somehow gravitated towards stories of how the couples at the table met. Me and Mark, Mom and Dad, our uncle and aunt, and Rebecca and Josh. The kids of my younger brother, Duke, male, 18, were out of the picture. Everyone looked back on it fondly, and each of us could speak about that day, but Rebecca and Josh painted a really ugly picture. Rebecca started, but Josh interrupted her and said, "Well, I noticed Rebecca for sure, but a certain part of her, if you know what I mean." Like, wow, in front of our parents. My sister turned as red as a beet, and Josh continued, saying, "Well, I met her at the mall. She was working at the counter of Subway, and I kept trying to make moves at her. She was a tough catch, but eventually I wore her down, ha ha." Again, I could tell this bothered Rebecca. She didn't say anything, but even tone-deaf. Josh noticed something was up, and he turned and asked her, "What's up, babe?" That's when she looked him dead in the eye and slapped him. Well, Josh stared at my sister, dumbfounded. She started crying and screaming, "You insensitive jerk. That's not even how we met. I hate you, and I've had enough of your stupid attitude. Just look at Mark and up. That's how I want to be." As soon as this came out, my brother-in-law whipped his face around to me and grunted, "What have you been telling her?" Before trying to console Rebecca by saying he slipped up and that must have been one of his previous girlfriends. Since nothing was secret anymore, I decided it was for the best to go off on Josh, and I told him about the insecurities and struggles my sister has been facing because of him, and he got steadily angrier and angrier. It climaxed with him calling me a nosy, and my husband, brother, and dad nearly ripped his head off. We kicked him out of the house and consoled Rebecca, and she's staying at our parents' house with Lyle indefinitely. After a few days, we found out that Josh had gotten his entire family to slander us across the town and is claiming that I badmouthed him to Rebecca and their family members had tried to murder him because of how influential his family is and how below the belt they are with their gossip. Dad's business has started to struggle, and Mom is losing her friends. While we're all super supportive of Rebecca, I can tell that she feels guilty that her parents are dragged into this mess. And I'm starting to feel like the a-hole for not bringing this up sooner so that she didn't explode at dinner, and we could have cut Josh out of her life in a less volatile manner. Update 1. So, after reading all of your comments, I do realize one thing. Josh would probably have been just as much of a pain in the A even if we hadn't hurt his ego. You all are right. People like him don't change. However, instead of being the bigger man about the whole scenario, I'm just as willing to fight below the belt to protect my sister. She's always looked out for me ever since I was a little kid, and it's my time to give back. I'm not exactly sure about how I'm going to go about it, but I'll figure it out. In the meanwhile, our parents have been remarkably strong, and even though they value their connection to their neighbors in the town, Rebecca comes first. They're helping her figure out how to divorce Josh, and have been really non-judgmental about the relationship coming to a close. I think Josh is going to fight for custody of Lyle, though, thankfully, the court of public opinion isn't going to sort things out, and I feel like we definitely win this legally. Besides, Mark and I are going to make sure we have the best possible lawyer on our side. Update 2. I have a way to get back at Josh, ready and waiting, and it's all because of his stupidity. Rebecca had texted him after he failed to show up for the first divorce summons, and that quickly escalated into him cussing her out and calling her useless, just terrible stuff. When Rebecca told me about it, I immediately texted him and told him to mind his behavior, and this jerk had enough of a superiority complex to text, "I own this town, nobody cares about what you think. And that of a sister, you have better learn to keep her mouth shut in a marriage." And that was nothing but a bold-faced threat. What this bastard had in threatening women. He lost an IQ though, because Josh didn't realize that Rebecca and I could both take screenshots and post this publicly on Facebook, where most of the older peeps in this town get all of their info on gossip from. After we did that, the tide slowly began shifting in our favor, because people were at least willing to hear us out. The biggest change happened for us when Mom got a call from an old lady who was Josh's mother. She said that after reading the way Josh had texted me and Rebecca, she felt like she had failed as a mother and to Rebecca, had failed as an in-law. After that, I guess she started doing her part to help fix the slander her family has done, and I'm sure that wasn't easy if everyone in that family was even as 110 for sexist Josh, however. There's still a hitch in the works when it comes to Rebecca, Josh's divorce, and that is his non-cooperation. This dude just thinks if he can ignore the fact that Rebecca wants to get separated, it'll go away. That's not the case, but he's not getting the hint. I think Rebecca spoke to her mother-in-law about it, and she said that she'll speak to her husband about knocking some sense into their son, but we haven't gotten any response so far. If you guys have any advice on how to move forwards with this, please DM me. Update 3. I guess things ended up working out. After a while, Josh's mom called us yet again and said that she threatened to go no contact with her son unless he moved forwards with a divorce, and that's finally made him relent. The child care plan and all the legal legwork have been done so far, and right now we're just at the 120-day waiting period before everything gets finalized. Lyle has been taking the whole thing pretty rough, but he's only a couple of years old, so it's tough for him to understand what's going on. Otherwise, hopefully, things will end up fine for my sister. I got an offer from a company to come back to the city I was working in previously, but I discussed it with Mark and we think we'd prefer to stay in my hometown for now. This whole experience has made me miss the bonds I had with my family, and I feel like I should be here for my sister. Besides, we're enjoying the lower cost of living and community spirit when it's not being ruined by gossip that small-town living brings. But back to the topic, I think we're going to be able to get through this without too much lasting damage. While Rebecca and Josh were married for 3 years, I know that she's going to find herself a man, or none, if that's what she wants. Who cares for her the way she wants to be cared for? YTA in the sense that I feel you should have brought this out of the woodwork way before it ended up happening. Even if Rebecca said that she would have trouble trusting you, I think you'd be doing her a favor. NTA. I don't get how people are saying that you should have just mentioned this to your parents earlier, or done something about it earlier. You couldn't have known, and were trying to balance your sister's emotions and your feelings of protectiveness towards her at the same time. Next story, this is a whole mess with a lot of background. So to keep the story short, I, 15 female, was raised by my mom. All I knew about my sperm donor growing up was that he wasn't in our lives and my mom would get really quiet and tense anytime he was brought up, so I stopped asking. She had problems and we didn't always get along, but I know she loved me and did her best. She died last year, and I still don't even know why exactly. No one would tell me I have to wait to 18 to go look for the paperwork, I guess. After she died, I had to go somewhere, and my mom's parents were already gone, so they ended up tracking down my bio father and sending me to him. I really didn't want that, but nobody listened, so that's where I am now. He's married and has 2 kids, 8 and 6, nice house, kind of a perfect stock photo family. It makes me mad, to be honest. He and his wife were all smiles starting out, but I heard his wife on the phone one time right after I moved in, saying that she was worried I'd be a bad influence on her kids because of how I grew up and how sullen I am, so I keep quiet and mostly stay in my room. Biofather keeps trying to get me to do family things with them and talk, but I don't want to. I don't want to be here, and I know his wife doesn't want me here, and he could have talked to me years before now if he wanted. I don't want to get to know their kids. I just want to get through the next 3 years and go. It turned into a problem because it was 8-year-old's birthday last weekend, and they were having a party at this indoor playground place. I didn't want to go, but they made me because family, so I just found a place to sit and read. One of the moms of the other kids started talking to me and asked me if I was 8-year-old's big sister that just moved in, and I said no. She must have told my bio father because he came over and asked why I told someone I wasn't related, and I said because I'm not. He said his kids were my siblings, and he was my dad, and I said he was my foster parent. My dad skipped out before I was born. He was quiet for a moment and walked away. Later, his wife told me I should apologize, and a lot of kids in my position would kill to have a parent who actually wanted them by our father has been down since, so maybe I don't know. Edit. All right, I thought about it overnight, and I'm going to take some of the advice and try and make a deal to get some answers. I'm going to put running away off unless things just go off the rails because my mom would probably snatch me bold from the afterlife as much as she worried about me turning into a missing native girl statistic, but if I am going to write it out, I have to know why all this is happening, so I'm going to tell my bio father tonight that if he will have a completely honest, no BS conversation with me about my mom and why he wasn't there, help me get the answers about my mom's death. If he doesn't know them, tell his wife to stay out of it, not push for more than I agree to. I'll participate in family dinner time, one family thing on the weekend, and not do anything really disruptive. If that doesn't work, I tried, and I'm going on complete lockdown until I can find a safe way to get out. NTA, your dad has clearly messed up and wasted your entire life not getting to know you. You have no obligation to suddenly forgive all of that and try to be part of a happy family. That being said, try not to take it out on your siblings. They are your siblings, and it's not their fault that they were born. NTA, you stated facts. Maybe have a frank discussion with both of them about the entire situation. You need to know his reasoning for abandoning you, and should express your discomfort in the house after overhearing your stepmom's conversation. Be open. You have 3 years to go. Next story. I live in an apartment with my fiance. About 5 months ago, we got new neighbors. From the beginning, they were terrible neighbors. They left trash in the hallway, played loud music past 1 a.m., and argued constantly. Most of that I was willing to ignore because we live in apartments. It's unfortunately to be expected. Aside from late-night music, the walls are fairly soundproof, so most of the time the noise is not the worst thing in the world. The landlords have talked to them and they had become more reasonable. However, they have 2 small children, maybe around 5 and 6 if I had to guess, and their children scream all day. They scream and cry and fight with each other, and the parents do nothing to stop them. I understand their children, but it cannot be good for them to be screaming like that constantly. It always seemed weird to me that there is rarely a quiet moment. We've asked them several times politely to get them to stop, but they never put a lot of effort into silencing their kids. We've contacted the office and have called the cops on really bad nights, but it still doesn't let up. Well, enough was enough. My hours recently changed to mornings, and while my work schedule and getting sleep is not their concern, I should be allowed to expect to have a quiet night in neighborhood. Around 3 a.m., 2 hours before I had to get up, the kids started yelling. It just happened before. On multiple occasions, I could hear them running around banging spoons or something on pots and pans, which is almost a daily occurrence. The mother screamed at them to shut the frick up, but they didn't stop, so I called CPS and told them I suspected they were being mistreated, which honestly was not a lie because it was concerning the amount of screaming coming from that house. I suspect they may have had the kids taken for the past week. There have been no screams from the kids. I told my fiancé what I did, and he thinks I shouldn't have done it. I asked some of our friends and my parents, and they all say the same thing. I should have sucked it up and minded my own business. I didn't think I did anything wrong, but I feel that if their parents cared about them, they wouldn't let them behave like that. So, Aita? Edit, I want to clarify that things have been like this from the beginning. Their children have been like this since day one. It is nothing new to anybody. Edit 2, I also want to clarify that I have only seen these children once when they moved in, which in my mind has always been a red flag. I never called CPS before because I never heard them being beaten up or anything, just their mother occasionally shouting at them, so I never knew for sure. I don't know the home situation, but everything from the beginning did always seem very odd. I never hear them leave the apartment when I'm home on my off days. I have rotating off days, and I don't know what kinds of jobs the parents have. I don't know a lot about CPS if I'm honest, but I always thought they would do something if something needed to be done. NTA, contrary to what people may believe, CPS doesn't actually want to remove children from their homes, so if they really did get taken away, it was almost certainly for a good reason. The common attitude of mind your own business is why so many abused children never get the help they deserve. It takes someone to actually stand up and say something for anything to happen. You did the right thing and you did a good thing if it ends up helping those kids NTA. Simply because if your neighbors had their children taken by CPS, it wasn't off of year one. Phone call, the system is under so much pressure they're not going to be taking children into the foster care system just because they're noisy at night, or have had one report against them. My guess they're already on the CPS radar for separate incidents.